You guys, I want to thank you so much for not only watching these videos about my seizures, but also sharing your experience with me. In this video, I'm going to share the triggers to my non-epileptic seizures. Just like the name suggests, these seizures that I experience are not epileptic. I have gone to a neurologist, I've gotten EEGs, video EEGs, and they've all come back that I don't have epilepsy. So in the description, I will put other videos to give you a background about my story when it comes to these seizures. But in this particular video, I'm just going to be focusing on the things that bring on these seizures that I have. Now, the things that I'm going to share are my experience. It doesn't mean that everyone who has non-epileptic seizures experiences these kind of symptoms or triggers. And also, please do not use this to diagnose yourself. Please make sure that you go to a neurologist, a medical professional, to be able to diagnose these things that you might experience as well if you have not been officially diagnosed, because you want to make sure that you rule out any other things. And the real big purpose of me doing a video like this is to bring awareness. I want to thank you so much for not only watching these videos about my seizures, but also sharing your experience with me. Because when you do that, the algorithm sees that there's an interest in these things and it shares it to others. And you guys help me to see the importance of sharing your story, because then others know that they're not alone. Maybe someone is experiencing some of these symptoms that they might have brushed off, and they're able to, go to a medical professional and get that diagnosis, or maybe rule that out and it winds up being something else. The very first trigger that I realized for my seizures is stress. Stress can aggravate many different kind of conditions, and non-epileptic seizures is no different. More so if I'm like really upset and I'm crying. Caffeine. I've always been sensitive to caffeine. When I went to the hospital to have a video EEG, or for them to ask me what would bring on a seizure, caffeine would do it. So I remember I was in the hospital, my husband went and got me a McDonald's coffee, and not too long after that, a seizure started to come on. So caffeine is definitely a big trigger for me personally. But so is sugar. Sugar is also another kind of stimulant. And just recently, I started having these ice pops, these organic ice pops that I got from Whole Foods, which are, really delicious. But I noticed like right after I would have one, I would start to have these feelings, of like, oh, I feel like I'm going to pass out, or I definitely know that the seizure is about to come on, because like I told you guys in other videos, I get warning symptoms that a seizure is about to happen, which I appreciate that they don't just come on like completely without any warning, so that I know to sit down, to mobilize myself, to lay down, and just let the process happen. So caffeine, sugar, that might be something to, if you also experience the same thing, to look at your diet. Physical stress, like if I'm in a lot of pain, that also can bring that on. And another thing that triggers my non-epileptic seizures is lack of sleep. If I had a night where I didn't get much sleep, and then I have somewhere to go in the morning or have to wake up early, not a good situation. Another thing that triggers my non-epileptic seizures that I didn't realize until recently, when I started to look at the pattern of when they would come on, is my hormones, my monthly cycle. So when I would sit and write down when my seizures would happen, I would notice at least once a month it would be triggered if all the other things weren't going on. If I wasn't under emotional stress, if I got enough rest, I don't drink caffeine. So if all those other things are, under control, the one thing that's really hard lately is the hormonal aspect of it. So I would get them so close to my cycle that I would know when I was having a seizure, my cycle's coming like maybe a week or two after the seizure. And that's actually what happened this month. I've had 2 seizures so far. this week actually. And my cycle hasn't come yet, but it's something, it's interesting how each seizure that I have is also not the same. So I know some of you guys were asking about that as well. Some have asked if I experience like a loss of breathing, like apnea. And when I thought of it in the beginning, when I started getting seizures, and especially if I was under like emotional stress and it caused like a really severe seizure, then I would notice it being difficult for me to breathe. But that's not my normal symptom when it comes to my seizures. So the ones that I had this week were definitely like facial tremors, facial spasms, and it gets so bad in my eye where like the rolling, like I can feel the muscles in my eye. You know, if you do leg day or you're doing some kind of like strength training exercises and you're like basically, you know, trying to bring that muscle to fatigue, like that's what's happening in my eye involuntarily. And I pretty much just have to like breathe through that. And of course, after that's done, then I'm completely exhausted. I have been, if you've noticed, not going live as much as I used to, not as active some weeks with my videos and things like that. And I'm learning within the past couple of months, my health has not been exactly where I would like it to be. And I'm learning to not just be preventative with my lifestyle and even what I do with work, creating content, but also just being open to what is happening with my body, because there are some things that you can plan for and say, okay, you know, I'm going to make sure I get enough rest. I'm going to make sure I watch my diet. And then there are other things that are outside of your control. I am now in my 40s, and so I am also experiencing some hormonal shifts as far as that's concerned. And if you're going through different changes in your life, i.e. the past year and a half, those things can also be a trigger to seizures, you know, any kind of stressor or a really big change. And so I have learned within the past, you know, couple of months how important it is to be flexible and to allow space for however it is that you're dealing with things. Because I noticed for myself, when having chronic illness, I could think to myself, I have everything down packed, and then something can come up and you have to literally be flexible and not say, well, I did this before, you know, it shouldn't be happening like this. But you know, that is life. That's how it goes. So I'm learning to pivot, to be more adaptable. You know, I told you guys before that I had started a walking habit. I was doing really good up until March. And since then, it's been really spotty with my walking. My diet has been like off the rails. Actually, today was a day that I felt like I was gaining back some control again. I woke up this morning and I tried to get some meals prepared, because that's half the battle, preparation, you know, trying to get back to my walks again, but really just learning to deal with myself as the day presents. I can't even base it on how I was last week. Sometimes some seasons in your life are so delicate in that you literally have to, you know, the phrase, take it a day at a time, or whatever that day presents to you. And as I always try and encourage you guys, apply lots of self-compassion. Acknowledge that this is different. Acknowledge that it's a struggle, and then just work with yourself in a gentle way. Otherwise, you'll stay down longer. So I'd love to hear in the comments if you experience non-epileptic seizures. What are your triggers? What are some of the things that you do to cope? I will also be doing another video going into a little bit more depth of the ways that I try and cope with these different conditions that I have. If you are a non-epileptic seizure warrior, please know that you're not alone. Like I said, I so appreciate you guys sharing your experiences with me. My heart and compassion goes to you guys who are dealing with this. And I know there are some of you too who may be watching this in an area where you're not able to get as much help. And I will tell you just a little preview of how I cope. most of it has nothing to do with going to the doctors and any kind of medication. It has a lot to do with me, my mindset, and lifestyle choices. So don't feel like just because where you are, it's limited because a doctor isn't, doesn't know much about the condition. Also, when you advocate for yourself having a chronic illness, you might be that person to help educate the doctor in your area, to be able to help others who after you experience things like this, because I know I've definitely been able to do that. So I thank you guys again for your understanding and your patience. You're at least going to see me on here once a week, but if you see less than that, then know that I'm taking space that I need to be able to deal with my health and understanding that that is a priority. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.